of someone asking for, like, what is the contradiction that's entailed by atheism? Like the P, such that atheism entails the P and not P.
Atheism contradicts theism.
Mm-hmm.
That's the contradiction.
Okay, yeah. Their dialectical position was that that's not like an internal contradiction in atheism, but I guess your response would be that
it's something. Well, true. Well, the problem with the atheist position that there is no God. The incoherency there is without a God, you couldn't make assertions.
Yeah, that's basically what their interlocutor said. Their response, again, I can understand this being tiresome, like argument by proxy. Their response to that was basically that it's like inappropriate to talk about assertions and like people making statements because why? Well, the thought was, as far as I can understand, the thought was that there's like the proposition, like regardless of whether anyone asserts it, there's this proposition that God doesn't exist, and so you should, but their argument was you should be able to derive this contradiction without talking about anyone asserting anything or people saying anything. It should just be just the proposition. I guess they wanted like I'm not quite sure exactly what they were looking for, but they thought that the contradiction had to be like entirely internal to atheism, and it had to not refer to making assertions or something like that. I was just wondering if you're familiar with this.
There are influence. Well, in atheism, their position is it's implied, right, that affirmations and denials are available, they're viable in a not-God world.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But that's simply not true. So the actual truth state is that in a not-God world, no affirmations could be grounded. Right? So therefore, when they say there is no God, then it would be like saying the sky is not blue, or the sky is not gray, or cloud, whatever. Whatever their affirmation or negation is, okay, it's vitiated, it's contradicted by the position that without God existing, which would be the necessary precondition for affirmations and denials, that's the internal conflict right there.
That's kind of what
Cornelius Van Til said, atheism, and I'm going to paraphrase him because he used slightly different language, but he said atheism presupposes theism, Christian theism.
That's kind of what I thought your response would be, and I thought that my impression was that it was sort of like a back and forth gotcha game, not like anything super productive.
Well, the problem with the overwhelming vast majority of atheists that I deal with, even those with PhDs, in my biased opinion, is they're not operating in good faith. Okay? Because if they were, they would realize the incoherency of their position.
Yeah, I thought that, so this might just be like something more specialized, but like if we're just talking about propositions and like the kind of like logic approach, I was struck by the insistence that everything had to be internal to atheism, because like technically you can introduce like necessary truths. For example, it might be that like if atheism entails that 1 + 1 = 3, that's like an internal that contradiction isn't like internal to atheism, right? But it is contradictory to a necessary truth, which is that 1 + 1 = 2 and 2 does not equal 3.
The affirmation of atheism is like metaphorically stepping on a landmine. You're
atheism incoherent, but doesn't make it somewhat.
Of course, atheism is incoherent because there's no that background information, metaphysical background information to make assertions. I mean, I can demonstrate right now. We have the president and the founder, and we have some anthem music. Randolf Richardson from Canadian Atheists, right? So Randolf Richardson, how in your atheist worldview, what is the ultimate background information that allows you to make affirmations and denials? All right, so Randolph, are you there?
My microphone is suppressed.
Wow, we have the president of Canadian Atheists, and he's silent. What a shame.
Well, my microphone is suppressed here, so they can't hear me. I can't turn it on.
Some people can't handle the heat.
Yeah, he just likes to shoot his mouth off when he has a protective squad around him.
Did he actually, or?
Yeah, that's Randolph Richardson.
Did any of the atheists ever submit evidence to try to disprove God and show that to be the case?
No, you don't listen. Here, if you want to understand atheism, it's very simple, okay? They are bitter clingers to their would-be autonomy, okay? Meaning, as a conscious being. The only alternative to that metaphysically is that the mind of God as creator is autonomous. Okay? And by would-be autonomy, I mean that the atheist's mind is that the mind of man is not derivative and dependent both chronologically and contemporarily upon the mind of God. Okay? But then the question is, how is one's consciousness intelligible? What is the metaphysical background information that provides for its actuality and intelligibility?
Yeah, hard atheism has nothing to pin on. They've never proven that there's no God ever.
No, what they do is, and this is true for the overwhelming vast majority of them, is they just spew out cliches and platitudes. And they repeat them over and over and over again. And then when you systematically dissect them and debunk them, then they go to a new cliche. When you debunk that, right, then eventually they go back to their starting place again. Oh, well, atheism is just a lack of belief. See, this is the shtick that Randolph Richardson does. Even his own fellow atheists on a YouTube page took him to task for not including a wealth of reference works that define atheism as the denial of God. Okay?
Yeah, but they can't win the Nobel Prize that way. Because they're not proving anything by saying, well, we lack this. They have to prove there's no God to win the Nobel Prize.
When he says that it's a lack of belief, this is not informative. Every atheist that denies the existence of God can be categorized as lacking belief in God. So if lacking belief in God includes both the denial and not the denial of God, and they just say atheism is lack of belief, that's not informative. They're purposely adopting this definition to insulate themselves from having to defend what they really believe. And when they say it's a lack of belief, then they're making their position indistinguishable from agnosticism. But when they're confronted with that, they double down on their stupidity, going, well, agnosticism has to do with knowledge, not belief. I mean, it's purely idiotic when G.H. Huxley defined agnosticism as to incorporate knowing or belief and believing.
Sir, Randolph Richardson's mic is pressed.
Oh, okay. Now I know. Okay, so he's new to the service. Alright, try again, Randolph.
Oh, now it's working. Thank you. I was trying to respond, but Discord kept telling me my microphone was suppressed, so thank you for fixing that.
Okay. Randolph, if I believe that any facts believe that, am I withholding judgment from God?
I'm not sure. I remember when we've talked before, you were always telling me that all facts God is necessary for all facts.
Okay.
Yeah, but it sounds like you're asking me.
The question, Randolph?
But it sounds like you're asking me something different now.
Right. So why are you going down memory lane? Why don't you focus on what I just asked?
I'm just trying to make sure I'm understanding correctly. So you're saying if any facts are...
If somebody affirms or believes that a fact requires, if they believe that a fact necessitates deriving and depending upon God, if they affirm that, does that equal that they're withholding judgment from God?
No. If they think that facts are dependent or necessitated by God, then obviously they're requiring that there is a God to support that.
Randolph, do you positively believe that facts necessitate deriving and depending upon God?
No, because I don't believe in any God.
Okay. So you believe facts are within the realm of independence, non-dependence upon God until shown otherwise, right?
Yeah, that's how it appears to me. So I think that's a fair assessment, yes.
Right. Can God logically coexist in a world if that belief is true?
I can't exclude that because there could be facts that I'm not aware of that would be necessitated by God.
Randolph, can God logically coexist in a world where even one fact does not necessitate deriving from it?
Oh yeah, I think that's quite necessary actually.
No, I think that's incoherent if God is defined as the necessary precondition of all facts. Okay? If we define God as the supreme being, the creator of all things and is not himself.
That's illogical.
All facts. What's that?
That's illogical.
What's illogical?
What you just stated, that all facts have a precondition of God.
No, I said all facts that are not God.
Right, you were just mentioning about all facts. There's a precondition of God.
All facts that are not God define God as the supreme being and the creator of all facts that are not himself. Is that illogical?
No, because you've added the condition of facts that are not God.
That's what I said to begin with. Are you having trouble with your hearing?
No, I'm not. It's just your argument has changed since the last time we talked, so I'm having to adjust.
I didn't make an argument. I just gave you a definition.
Oh, a definition. Oh, okay. I thought it was an argument being posed to me.
Okay, this is what I want the audience to notice here. Okay, this is Randolf Richardson, the president of Canadian Atheists. And like most atheists, they either are poorly habitated or they willfully do not focus on what you say, and they respond to something that is semi-related when you say things, rather than to what you said. So, can God, as defined, logically coexist if there is one fact that exists without the necessity of deriving or depending upon God?
Yes.
That's a contradiction in terms by the definition of God. God is defined as the necessary precondition of all facts that in themselves, which means all facts in a God world derive and depend upon God. Okay? Definitionally. So, a God that is defined in that way, can he logically coexist if there is one fact that does not depend upon him?
It's still necessary because facts themselves, the concept of facts themselves.
It never ceases to amaze me.
You're not letting me finish.
It amazes me that a man who can do his own electrical work and, do framing and building and stuff like that doesn't get this.
I appreciate that you watch my work.
God cannot logically coexist when he is defined defined as the source and basis of all facts. When God is defined that way, he cannot logically coexist if there's a fact that doesn't depend upon him. That's a contradiction in terms. You understand that?
The concept of facts themselves have to be independent from God.
Okay. Randolph. Save that thought. I want you to repeat that in a couple of minutes. Okay?
What's wrong with addressing it right now?
Because it's segueing away from what we're talking about. Listen,
Oh no, a fact that there are facts is not dependent on God, or is it?
God, as defined, only logically coexists with facts that depend upon him.
So if that's a fact, then that can't depend on God as well.
No, again, you are ignoring my qualification. Okay? Remember my qualification? That God is defined as the basis and the source of all facts that are not himself. Don't you remember? Do you have memory problems?
No.
When I say all facts, I'm referring to all facts that are not God. Are we clear?
Okay, I'm clear on that now.
Okay, now, God can only logically coexist with one or more facts if and only if they derive from him. It's definitionally true.
So can you demonstrate that the concept of facts are dependent on God?
That's not what we're discussing right now.
I thought we're discussing facts and God.
Okay, listen to me carefully. See, this is the problem, folks. They either inadvertently or purposely try to segue away. Listen carefully. I'm talking about a logical entailment. Okay? If God is defined as the necessary precondition of all facts that are not himself, right? If God is defined that way, can that God logically coexist if there's one fact that does not logically coexist? That's the key word. Logically coexist. Can God logically coexist if there's one fact that does not have God as its precondition?
Darth Dawkins, can you give me the banish
Shut
roll?
up.
Until you give me the banish roll.
Shut with the mod music, please.
Please no. I'm innocent.
If God is defined in the way I have, that he is the necessary precondition of all facts that are not himself, can God logically coexist if there is a fact that does not ontologically depend upon him? Can they both logically coexist, Randolph?
They have to.
Okay, wow. This blows my mind how obtuse you are.
Please bear with me, I am blonde.
God can only logically by definition. We're not talking about the actuality of God. We're saying by definition, in a God world, the only facts that would exist were the ones that derive the facts that are not God. The only facts in a God world that would exist in that world would be facts that derive upon God. It's definitional, Randolph.
Oh, well, definitionally, and if we exclude facts being facts, then yes.
Okay, so can God logically coexist if it is true that there is some fact that does not necessitate deriving upon God? Can those two things logically coexist, God and a fact that doesn't depend upon God? Can they logically coexist?
By your definition, I agree with you, no.
Okay, now, so God cannot logically coexist if a fact doesn't depend upon him. So if one affirms that it is true that there is a fact that doesn't depend upon God, it entails that God does not exist.
Definitionally, yes.
Right. Do you assert that there's even one fact necessitate deriving from God. Do you believe that?
Well, in reality, there is the fact that a fact is a fact, and I think that does not depend on God.
That's an asinine statement you just made. That's totally, that meant nothing. A fact is a fact is a fact.
Yeah, I said too many times. The fact is fact.
Randolph, can you focus? Can you focus on what I'm saying to you?
What is a fact?
See, I think when I talk with you, you throw a switch on the back of your head and you turn into fifth grade mode.
No, seriously.
I know you're not this dumb in real life. I know you're not.
Well,
you like somebody go, but I play a doctor on TV. Randolph, okay? If a fact, if you affirm a fact that it does not depend upon God, that entails that God doesn't exist.
What is a fact? A fact is
stop with the bullshit. Stop with the hair splitting here.
It is a state of something that's true.
Does a fact that is not God, if it is qualified, right, is that it does not necessitate depending upon God. That fact in question, if it is true, does that entail that God does not exist?
I'm trying to focus on one particular thing here.
Can you answer the question, Randolph? Instead of doing your usual evasiveness that you always do, which is embarrassing.
I'm not trying to be evasive. I'm trying to...
If there is a single fact, okay, that does not necessitate rising and depending upon God, if that is true, does that not entail that God cannot exist?
By your definition, yes.
So the issue is, does it, okay, by my definition, do you affirm that there is one fact that does not necessitate deriving from God? Do you affirm that?
There's two such facts, actually.
Yeah. Do you affirm it, yes or no?
I just said yes, and I said there's two facts that I'm affirming that for.
So what you do affirm entails that God does not exist then.
Well, you're trying to apply definition to reality, and I'm not accepting the definition.
Is what you affirm, does it entail that God does not exist?
I'm not accepting the definition as part of reality.
If what you affirm, okay, when you affirm there's a fact that does not depend upon God, does that entail that God does not exist?
The problem is your definition isn't fitting with reality.
Okay, Randolph, you're bullshitting again as you usually do, and it makes you look really bad as the president and founder of American Atheists.
Canadian Atheists, but I do appreciate the compliment.
You know what? It's my mistake. It's late. I'm tired.
Oh, that's okay. No, it's okay. I'm not faulting you for it. Don't worry. Yeah.
My bad. That was a verbal faux pas.
It's okay. It's a minor thing.
Okay, Randolph, does your belief that a fact exists without dependence upon God, does your positive belief that that's true entail that God does not exist?
First part of your answer to your question is yes. The second part is that it's based on the definition you provided.
Okay. So what you affirm commits you to the non-existence of God, right?
Centered on the definition you provided? Sure.
So your position entails that God does not exist.
With the stipulation that your definition is applicable.
Okay, Randolph, does your position entail that God does not exist?
Based on your definition, yes.
No, Randolph, does your position entail that God does not exist?
No.
Okay, Randolph, is your position that there is at least one fact that does not depend upon God?
Yes, two in fact.
Okay. Does that fact entail that God cannot exist?
By your definition, yes.
No, Randolph. Yes, that's right. God is defined as the precondition of all facts that are not of self. Is that how you define God, Randolph? Do you withhold belief in God as defined as the precondition of all facts that are not of self?
Yes, I do withhold. I do withhold belief on that. I don't believe that.
Okay. Right. Okay. So we're using the same definition of God here. So stop with the situation when you say, well, the definition you gave because you yourself accept that definition.
For the purpose of this conversation, sure.
Randolph, do you believe or not believe in God as defined as being the creator of all things that are not himself?
In reality, I don't believe in God. I don't believe that.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay. So, you don't believe in that. So that's the working definition that both of us are using. There might be other definitions of God that you don't believe in, but right now,
correct.
That's the definition we are both embracing. Right? Not just me.
I'm entertaining the definition not as part of reality, but for the purposes of the conversation.
You just believe in a multiple gods. Is one of those gods that you disbelieve in a God who is defined as the creator and sustainer of all facts that are not himself?
I don't believe in that God either.
Okay, fine. Then stop with the bullshit by you saying as you define it, because you define it that way too.
No, I don't define a God that way.
Okay, you know what?
But I'm willing to entertain. I'm willing to entertain your definition.
I'm really beginning to wonder what a pathological liar you are and a deceiver. Okay? Do you disbelieve in a God that is defined as the creator and sustainer of all facts that are not himself? Do you disbelieve in that?
Yeah, I think it's illogical.
Okay, fine. Okay. Now, so God defined it that way doesn't exist?
Yeah, it's a matter of it being not logical. Correct.
Okay, so your position then is that God as defined does not exist?
As for that definition, correct.
Okay. So Randolph, so now we're clear, right? Because over and over again you go, well, atheist, black and belief, I don't have a belief in good. Now you're saying you believe there is no God as defined, right?
Yeah, that particular God, correct, because of the logical problem.
Right. Okay, good. Okay, so God does not exist because?
Well, there is this, of what a fact is. A fact is a position, I guess an observation of what's true. And I think that is also not dependent on a God.
Randolph, you haven't answered my question. You bloviated.
No, I gave you a short answer here. I'm just having a little trouble articulating, that's all.
God does not exist because?
Because facts are facts.
That's a non-informative answer. Being the president and founder of, and I'll get it right this time, Canadian Atheist.
Thank you.
That's a non-informative answer. God does not exist because, can you give me an informative answer, being the president of Canadian Atheist? By the way, what's the member toll so far? Is it above 50 now?
Yeah, it's nearing 65, roughly.
Wow. Okay, so God does not exist because?
I'm glad you're impressed with that number, because it is hard work to get it there. The truth is basically a point of a statement about something that's real. And if it is a fact that God exists, then that fact itself cannot be dependent on the precondition of God. I guess it can't be something that God created. That fact is something that has to be observed independently in order to be validated.
Could you make that gobbledygook into one intelligible sentence?
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's late here for me too. It's 2,300 hours already. it's a fact.
God does not exist
because a statement about reality that God exists, you're saying has to have, by your definition, has to have all facts are precondition of God.
Didn't I ask you to sum all that meandering up in a cogent sentence? Can you do that?
Yeah, I'm trying to work through this. I'm trying to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, because when you give me, you just go on these circuitous paths, and I don't have the foggiest idea of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm trying. I really am trying to work with you on this.
God does not exist because.
I really am trying to work with you on this.
In a succinct sentence,
what
God
is
does not exist because.
The fact that you're stating it's a fact that God exists. So to make that statement, that's a statement about reality.
Okay, Randolf, what was the question that I asked you?
I'm trying to get to the answer here, and I'm trying to make it clear.
Randolph, did I not ask you? Can you give me an answer to the question in one sentence instead of giving me a mini community college lecture? Okay, in one sentence, God does not exist because.
I'm not trying to give you a lecture. I really am not. But I don't think I can do it in one sentence.
Because.
I don't think I can do it in one sentence, but I am trying to keep it concise.
Okay. Well, why don't you give it to him one sentence, and if we need further clarification, we can add a second sentence. God does not exist because.
Because if there's a statement that this God is real, then that would be a fact that this God is real. That fact would be that observation would be independent of the God.
You're not giving me a one sentence answer. Okay? Your position is God does not exist.
There's commas in my sentence there. That's one sentence with a number of commas.
God does not exist because. Can you give me a one sentence summary?
I did. My sentence included commas and semicolons. It's just kind of hard to hear them.
Yeah. You sounded like bloviators. God does not exist because.
Well, this is a complex concept, so I'm trying.
I don't think you are.
I'm spending time here trying to converse with you on this and trying to make it clear.
I appreciate that. God does not exist because.
Because there's a statement about God being a part of reality, and that statement is basically the fact that is independent of God.
How did you determine that there is a one fact independent of God? How did you determine that?
Oh, I actually told you there too, and this is one of them.
How did you determine that there is one true state of affairs that metaphysically does not have its ultimate derivation and dependence upon God? How did you determine that?
Well, we need to be able to observe that separately.
That's a non-informative answer to me. How did you determine that any single fact does not ultimately derive from an eternal mind of God?
Well, I'm trying to give fact as an example of that. And
how did you determine that any single fact exists metaphysically and ontologically independent of God? How did you determine that?
I am at a loss for words for this because it's really hard to make that determination. Is
that assertion arbitrary or not arbitrary?
I'm trying not to be arbitrary.
Good. What is your justification that a fact in question exists ontologically and metaphysically without ultimate derivation and dependence upon God?
But we're adding ontologically onto this now. Okay.
No, I'm not adding it on. It's just inserted there for clarification.
Okay, I'll go with the word inserted. That's fine.
Your position is God ontologically and metaphysically does not exist. Your position is that there's a fact that does not necessitate deriving and depending upon God ontologically and metaphysically. Now, Randolph, how did you determine that any fact does not have its ultimate derivation and dependence upon God? Do you know then what is ultimate that is not God? Do you know what that is?
I don't know. I have some ideas that could serve as
how did you exclude God?
I do have some ideas that could serve as alternatives. But
how did you exclude God?
I need to see some kind of demonstration that the fact that God is real is
not an answer to my question. I didn't ask you to give me a request. How did you exclude God as the necessary precondition for the stipulated fact? How did you determine that?
It has to do with my understanding of what a fact is. And so it's basically based on my understanding. How did you determine
that, Randolph? I'm still waiting. You are dodging and dancing. How did you determine that any fact exists in complete independence from God? How did you determine that?
I guess because I'm not seeing the connection of how the facts are dependent on the God.
Oh, okay. So the not God world is true because you are unconvinced that that fact depends upon God.
I'm not willing to.
I'm not seeing a connection.
No, I'm not. So because I'm not seeing it means that I'm not accepting it as necessarily true. Okay. That doesn't mean I'm rejecting it.
Okay. Listen to me. This is amazing. You never cease to amaze me.
Thank you.
That wasn't a compliment.
Oh, it felt like a compliment.
No. It's like the captain in the Sound of Music. It was meant as an accusation.
Oh.
If you've seen the Sound of Music, you'll know the line I'm talking about.
What are you accusing me of?
Being purposely invasive, obtuse, and deceptive.
I'm trying to be clear because I find
I don't think you are at all. I don't believe you. Now, you keep on playing little word games, little semantic gymnastics. Okay. Now, a fact in question exists independently and non-derivatively from God because I'm waiting.
I'm sorry, it cut out a little bit for me. Maybe you can repeat. Sorry.
The fact in question that you categorize as existing with independence from God, metaphysically, ontologically, because
it's a statement about reality, and I'm not seeing that it's dependent on a single deity, a single God.
Okay, so when you say you're not seeing how that is, are you stating you're unpersuaded?
Yes, I'm unpersuaded.
Okay, so a fact is ontologically independent from God because you're unconvinced.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yes.
So the not God world is true because you are unconvinced of the God world.
Yeah, and the definition of God that we're working with. And
is that your position?
So the definition of God we're working with, yes.
Okay. That's argumentum ad ignorantum fallacy. That's an appeal to ignorance. That a proposition is invoked solely to be true on the grounds that its negation is unconvincing, but you don't have a reason for it. So you have your rationale that God does not exist is an appeal to ignorance.
I don't need to have a reason to not believe something, though.
Listen to me carefully. That wasn't a response to my question. made a appeal to ignorance fallacy. I just walked you through it. That the not God world, which is the same thing as saying a fact is independent of God, okay? If a fact is independent of God, that constitutes the not God world, right? The not God world is to be invoked as true, because the God world, meaning a fact that depends upon God, you don't have a reason for it. Is that your position?
Kind of.
No. Is that your position that the not God world is true solely on the grounds that the God world you don't have a reason for or you're not convinced of it?
I'm not convinced. I'm not saying that there absolutely are no God.
Can you give me a straightforward answer to the question instead
That
of
was a straightforward answer.
evasive responses here?
No, this was a straightforward answer.
No, it wasn't, or else I wouldn't have made that retort. Is the not God world true solely on the grounds that you don't have a reason to believe in the God world?
You're limiting the scope of my answers.
Okay, can you answer the question, please? See,
I don't know.
This is how dishonest of a human being you are. When you get
I'm not
asked
dishonest.
no, you are dishonest in this category. You may be as honest as the day is long in other parts of your life. I'm talking about this subject matter. And this is the same old crap that you dish out with me, that last response. Okay? Saying you're limiting my answer is not an answer to my question. It's just a statement of evasion. It's hand-waving. Look at this glittering thing over here.
I think...
Okay? Is it your position that the not God world is true?
I don't hold that position because
Hold on. I misspoke. Is it your position that the not God world is true?
it's not my position, no.
Okay, you're a liar. Okay? Because you told me that earlier.
So I think the problem...
You are now lying. Did you not tell me
the problem here...
you believe that one fact does not depend upon God, and your belief that that is true entails that God cannot exist?
Based on the definition you provided, yes. Now, the problem
No, sir. It wasn't the
problem.
definition I provided. Here we go again with the atheist cliches, okay? It's both of our definitions.
Sure.
Not just mine.
Sir Dawkins, I don't believe that doesn't mean that I necessarily take a position either way.
Okay, here we go again. Here we go again with your bullshit.
And the problem is...
it's disgusting. You make me want to vomit.
No, that's not my intention.
You reach into your little pre-performed cliche responses. Listen carefully. Do you affirm a proposition that commits you that God does not exist?
No, I don't affirm that position.
Okay, you do. You're a liar. You just told me minutes ago that you believe that there's a fact that exists with independence from God, and that fact entails that God doesn't exist. You told me this.
The problem is that I'm not...
Did you tell me that earlier?
The problem is I don't believe
Did
in the...
you tell me that earlier?
To entertain the definition you provided.
Did you tell me that earlier?
To entertain the position you provided, yes.
Question, point five. Did you tell me that earlier? The proposition that you believe to be true... I'm trying to answer your question. ...that God does not exist. Is it your position that God does not exist?
I'm trying to answer your question.
Okay, no, you're not. Answer it.
Yeah, you're cutting me off before I completely finish.
Is it your position that God does not exist?
Based on the definition we're talking about, yes.
Okay, so you believe God does not exist. Now...
The one that we defined, yes.
Yeah. So you believe God does not exist. You're not merely withholding judgment. You believe that God, in this conversation, does not exist, correct?
The one you defined, yes.
Why do you keep on adding that qualifier? Because you agree to that as well. There's no need for you to go, well, the one you defined, because we're not talking about anything else, Randolph. Why do you keep on adding that?
I'm being clear with my answers. Why is that a problem?
No, there's no need. Because
I'm not doing bait and switch.
Okay, your position is God does not exist, right?
The one that's fine, the one that we're talking about, yes.
Listen, if you say that again, if you say the one we're defining about, I'm going to kick you from the room. Because you said it a bazillion times. Okay? Now, is it your position that God does not exist?
I don't respond well to threats.
Okay, get the fuck out. What this guy is, he's well practiced at being evasive, deceptive, giving non-informative answers, answering direct questions with a rabbit trail.
He's just agnostic.
No, he's not agnostic, sir. He's calling himself an atheist. He's trying to co-opt the claim of agnosticism while not claiming to be an agnostic, but agnostics indirectly deny God. Okay? But you see that whole exercise there is one of him being evasive and deceptive. Okay? How many times did I ask him a straightforward question? Is it your position that God does not exist? And he couldn't just give a straightforward answer. Okay? But he admitted it when he said that he believes there's one fact that doesn't depend upon God, and it logically entails that God doesn't exist. But this is what a deceptive person is on this subject. It's disgusting. They don't want to admit what their real position is. Right? Now, we all heard him say there that the not-God world is true, because he doesn't have a reason to believe that facts depend upon God. If we say facts depend upon God, as we have previously defined them, that's the God world. So Randolf Richardson's position is that the not-God world is true solely on the grounds because he doesn't have a reason for the God world. I'm not putting words in the man's mouth. This is his position.
I feel like it was, I agree that that's what he said, that he contradicted himself, but I think his position, like I was going to try to charitably reconstruct it, I think his position is probably that there are these facts that are independent of God, and that those are in fact like contradict the existence of God, or entail that God doesn't exist, but he wasn't sure how to actually defend that view, how to actually like give reasons to think that that fact is independent of God, and I think he got stonewalled there and tried to backtrack and move around that, and it didn't work out.
I appreciate that you want to give a charitable interpretation, okay? However, have you listened, and I can all suspect that you have, okay, and you haven't, that's not a problem. Have you listened to the recorded previous interactions that I've had with this clown?
Not with that guy specifically, no.
Okay. So
I didn't know there was a history.
Yeah, there's been a number of interactions with us, and it is always this evasive double talk, monologuing, soliloquy. I mean, it's just disgusting talking with this guy, right? Now, he's not obnoxious. He presents himself cordially, far more cordial than I was, okay? But this guy it's amazing the depths that he will go to engage in verbal deception. And that's what I get outraged at. I think it's disgusting. Okay? He admitted that what he believes to be true convinces him that God doesn't exist. Right? And then when I said, your position is God doesn't exist, he keeps on going, oh, well, as you define it, as though that matters. The guy is a very deceptive human being on this issue.
I mean, they all are.
Can I ask you an unrelated question? I wish it was on topic. Well, then Make it fast, please.
No, it's a very long one, so no. Alright, never mind.
I mean, I have had at least a dozen or more interactions with this guy, and every time it is the same gobbledygook, circuitous responses, rabbit trailing, meandering commentary. I mean, it's disgusting. I don't say when people just outright disagree with me that's disgusting, but when they engage in verbal gymnastics for the purpose of obfuscating what his real position is. So it was clear. Does anybody want to dispute this? His position was, God does not exist. Okay? The not God world is true, solely on the grounds that he doesn't have a reason to believe in the God world, that facts depend upon God. Okay? Anybody want to dispute that was not his position? I didn't think so. And then when I explained to him that this is an appeal to ignorance, he doesn't care. Atheists do not care about their reason, as long as they put on a good show. They simply do not care. All right, the floor is open if anyone wants to make any comment either way. You know, there's only so much deception that someone's spewing out of them, even when they say it cordially, even with a smile, that I'm just going to put up with it. It's disgusting. Now, did you notice he said God is illogical? Did anyone hear him explain why that was? Anyone? Bueller? Did he explain, right, how it is God doesn't exist because God's illogical? Did he unpack that? Did he explain that? No. But he's the founder and president of Canadian Atheists, all 65 members of them. Yeah, get out of here, Randolph. You'll specifically have to DM me and say undeeply.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Current atheists are going to step up. Do you have like a strong view about like possible world metaphysics? Like, do you think there are other logically possible worlds that are different from the actual world? Do you think that it's just like a helpful way to talk about counterfactual? I'm wondering like where you fall on the scale from like David Lewis, who thinks like possible worlds are all actual.
Well, are there counterfactuals? In fact, there's a verse, I can't recall it at the moment, that William Lane Gray quoted, which is a clear, crystal example of a counterfactual.
If it were not so, I would have told you.
Yeah. I don't think that that's it. There's another verse. And I'm trying to remember the verse, but it's late and it's not coming to mind. But it's clear evidence that there's a counterfactual. you two people here.
So
yeah, Randolph, I removed you from the room, okay? Because you're deceptive. Well, you're right. Why was it repetitive? Because he was continuing to be evasive. He was obfuscating. He was prevaricating.
What does obfuscating mean?
It means to cloud an issue.
One of those around. But
A verbal cloud, prevaricating is pretending to answer while you're really not.
So the question I wanted to ask you before was that, let's say that in the next millennium, space travel and intellectual, interstellar travel and become a thing, and like people are living in different universes, in a way the galaxies and all that. Do you still think that by that time that religion like Christianity will still be a thing? What do you think it will be like? Forgotten, like basically all the things.
Okay, because of my biblical worldview and my view on the future, which is called eschatology, right? That time frame will never come about. That we will have the second return of Christ soon. From this standpoint now, related to the course of human history, I believe that we are at the tail end of human history. Whether I will see it in my lifetime, who knows? I believe that because of all the events that are going around, that the world does not have hundreds of years left.
Okay. That's all. I just want to hear your opinion.
We have it the over-under on 30 years.
I mean, if you go about
that's one I'm gonna withhold. Okay. Because 30 years can seem like a long time, but it can also seem like a blink of an eye. If you had said to me 40 years ago, how do you see things in 30 years? What's that?
If 40 years ago, the stuff we're doing today, yeah, I agree. It's crazy.
And then 40 years just went by in my lifetime. From this perspective, it's like a blink of an eye. Okay, so that one I'm not going to, make a prediction on. But I believe we're moving toward the tail end of human history. I don't think that there's going to be 100 or more years before the return of Christ. I think it's going to be sooner than that, given what the Bible says and the nature of the coalescing of the nature of world events.
Mill or millennial kingdom person? What is your?
I am a premillennialist. I hold a premillennial eschatology.
and then
for everyone in the room, Amil is premillennialism is the idea that the promised kingdom is going unfulfilled will be fulfilled in Jesus Christ's second coming for 1,000 years in Jerusalem. There are Christians who hold to theology, usually people who hold to covenant theology, that do not hold to that. They believe that the true believers on the planet, that we call a church, are the fulfillment of the promises to Israel. So they would be called millennials. They would deny that there's a millennium. Okay? Now, if they reasoned like atheists, they would just say, I lack belief in a millennium. But because the covenant theologians, or people who hold to covenant theology, are not anywhere near as deceitful and dishonest as the atheists, for them, millennialism or amillennialism is the denial that there's a millennium. They don't go, I lack belief in a millennium. Why do you think all these atheists and Randolf Richardson pull this crap? Because they want to insulate themselves from not having to defend what they really believe, and they just hide behind a barrage of verbal gymnastics. You know, we've all heard him commit that he believes that God doesn't exist. But when you press on defending it, he tries to scurry back to his old shtick again, that it's just a lack of belief. So he doesn't have to defend what he really believes. And by the way, this isn't the first time he does it. Every single encounter I've had with him, it is the same deceptive responses. Anybody in here think atheists are honest in the dialogue? Anybody want to defend the honesty of atheists? Okay.
Again, because the last time I talked to an atheist was 10 years ago.
No.
So,
I think like debate board atheists are pretty hit or miss. But I think, I don't know, like when I read like J.L. Mackie, you know, like the philosophical atheists from, you know, anywhere from 15 to 35 years ago, I feel like there's just like productive stuff, thought-provoking stuff there.
Okay. Well, I'm not talking about people like J.L. Mackie or, you know, the likes of Graham Oppie, right? I'm talking about online atheists, right? When we dialogue with them, right? Now, when they are not hit with certain clear questions, you know, they'll speak transparently. But when the questions get clear and narrow, then they become deceptive. Why do you think it is they have attempted to repeat over and over again so that the dictionaries change the definition from the denial of God to the lack of belief in God? Why do you think they're doing that? Anyone? If they simply lack belief in God that does not constitute the denial of God, then they're basically claiming to withhold judgment about the existence of God. And if they're withholding judgment, how is that any substantively different than agnostics who claim they're withholding judgment? Anyone? Anyone want to comment? What's the substantive difference?
I would agree with that last thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same. Like, why call yourself an atheist if you're just, not a theist? Well, I don't know. Why call yourself an atheist if all you are is, you're not claiming there's no God, then you're not an atheist.
Let me ask you guys a question. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Matt Dillahunty, okay? The Prince of Bloviation on YouTube for atheism. Imagine imagine he was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and he made it all the way up to the $1 million question, and Regis Philbin were to ask him the final question. What do you call somebody who denies the existence of God? And the four answers were atheist, deist, theist, or Trekkie. What would Matt Dillahunty say? Anyone?
He'd probably say agnostic atheist.
No, you have to pick from one of the answers. It's either, what do you call somebody who denies the existence of God? Is it atheist, deist, theist, or Trekkie? What would he answer for $1 million?
I don't know what to suppose it is, but I suppose the likes you would make.
Well, if you don't know who he is, then that undermines you understanding the question.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, because this is a guy who is adamant. I don't believe in God, but I'm not asserting God doesn't exist. So what would Matt Dillahunty say would be the answer? Would he go with his usual shtick and lose $1 million, or would he bite the bullet so he could get the $1 million and say, an atheist is somebody who denies the existence of God?
Yeah, he'd say atheist, and then he'd say, I just said it to get $1 million.
Of course.
Yeah.
I get atheists all the time saying, atheism is a lack of belief in God. It's not the denial of God. Say, if we polled 10 million people in the United States, and we say, is there a single word in the English language which is used to designate that somebody denies the existence of God, what would the overwhelming majority of the 10 million people say? What would they say? We all know what they would say. See, this is what it is with most of these online atheists. They're deceptive, they're evasive, they're dishonest.
Yep.
I mean, there are certain professional theologians, philosophers who are atheists, like you mentioned J.L. Mackie, I mentioned Graham Oppie, there are others. And I'm not as familiar with J.L. Mackie, but I assume that he outright denies God. Am I correct on that?
I think, what do you think of?
What do you also like an ethical nihilist? He originated the queerness art and moral realism.
What do you think of Richard Carrier?
I just think he's a joke.
Can I ask just like a quick question on that specific thing?
Anybody can.
Is there a phrase for somebody who really doesn't believe in God versus a phrase for somebody who denies God?
If somebody, you could say to yourself, well, I'm a non-theist, but that wouldn't be informative. What would that mean?
They can't hear me, but non-theist.
Look, there's two positions on the existence of God. You can assert that God is, and you're a theist. You can assert that God does not exist. You're an atheist. Or there is the claim to withhold judgment. We call that an agnostic. Now, I don't agree that agnostics withhold judgment from God at all. But that's the claim.
How do agnostics solve this?
Well, an agnostic claims that the word God doesn't mean anything. Okay? Atheism, theological non-cognitivism, that God either doesn't mean anything or it's unintelligible. Okay?
Or undefinable.
Undefinable, yeah. But the funny thing is, I've dealt with some of these people before, and they're lying about their position. Okay? Because they will use God various sentences and reasoning structures, but they claim that God doesn't mean anything. Then why are they reasoning about God then?
And maybe using your own reasoning to help interpret God?
No, because God doesn't mean anything. That whatever definition that's right.
Have you tried the Trinitarian?
Right? No, you're not understanding. The meaning that I give to God, they find is not coherent. It's not intelligible.
Yeah, but you have that.
You're not understanding. The atheist says that all representations of God are not intelligible.
Okay.
That's their point. Go ahead.
Unintelligible or fail to refer?
Well, is this a distinction without difference?
It might just be getting into the weeds of philosophy and language, I guess. You might think that it's like,
yeah. I think atheism is I think it's ridiculous. Okay.
We're talking about Gnosticism.
Agnosticism is that God doesn't mean anything. It's not intelligent.
Right. So how do you refute that? Like, what is your approach to that? Or do you just not?
Well, I think it's an utterly cowardice way out. Just simply say, okay, is it mind intelligible? Right.
It needs to be said, though, it's important to say that it doesn't prove or disprove God.
No. Yeah.
That's true. I was asking how his approach was. It's all that.
Yeah. That's a fair question. It's late. I'm tired. I'm trying to collect my thoughts.
So I want to interrupt you for a second. So what's the Trinitarian approach actually refutes agnosticism? And that's a little controversial, but I think it does. I think it actually refutes it.
Okay, so let me give you an example. There's a person who has said over and over again to me, I don't know what God means. So he's claiming atheism. I said, do you know what a mind is? He said, yeah. I said, is that intelligible? Is that meaningful? He goes, yeah. I said, okay, how about the word eternal as opposed to temporal? Is that intelligible to you? He says, yes. I said, okay, God is an eternal mind that is the source and basis of all things that are not himself. What is unintelligible about that? Okay? I think people opt for atheism or theological non-cognitivism because they're of their cowardice of defending that they're actually denying God in their hearts. Okay? Usually people who adopt this, they'll express a kind of verificationism. And the only thing they're willing to believe in are those things that they can detect with their senses. Right? But verificationism is self-refuting. So I consider atheists as a kind of a joke. I think they're more of a joke than the claim of agnosticism. Right? Ask yourself this question. How many interweb atheists do you come across who will clearly assert God doesn't exist and here's why he doesn't exist? As opposed to most of the interweb atheists saying, I'm an atheist, but I lack belief in God. There's a reason why they're saying they lack belief in God. Because they don't want to defend what they really believe, that God doesn't exist.
I told them that it's the ATD server and they banned.
I mean,
What server?
ATS Community of Boston, ATA, ATD.
The clown show of Boston, yeah.
Yeah, and during when I was basically getting banned, I said that the LGBTQIA plus
group was a hate group because they exclude straight people, normal people. It's basically like setting it up for, like, to me it's a hate group. I don't know. I was raised to ask you for that, huh? Yeah, I'm from the Portland area, and I was talking about the gay quiet groups they have and what they'll do. If you look too straight, they'll straighten your car and unicorn it up and key it and Dave and cream it. And it's like,
I wouldn't.
What are you doing?
I wouldn't say that they are a hate group or anything. I would just more say that they're fucking obnoxious and cancerous by this point.
They won't even let me get away with being a lesbian.
It's a Discord server. Come on. Here.
Well, you would have to understand that they're going to take that position because Matt Dillahunty has publicly declared that he's dating a tranny. He's dating.
We use that term on the server. It's that's Discord rule.
Don't say this word.
TRY.
I can't say what?
The trans word, please don't. I'm asking you. Like
that's verboten by Discord?
That's Discord, yeah.
You can't say the TRANY word.
There's going to be a time when you can't even speak anymore. So if I say a self-proclaimed transsexual, that's okay. But if I say tranny, I can't say that.
Yeah, you can't say that. Yeah.
Say that.
It's only because of the
just you were weird with the N-word, just to say the T-word.
It's only like 20 words, guys. Calm down.
Is that actually in the terms of service?
Yeah, it's under the slurs.
Does that the services? Okay, does it actually spell that out and say that it's a slur?
Yeah. They have a separate list specifically for all the slurs.
There was a place on Discord that's called Academic Mod, and one word they pick up is, for example, other than trap is words.
So I could say that Matt Dillahunty claims to be in a dating relationship with some guy who claims to be trans, but if I add the letter E to it, I'm guilty of a slur. Okay.
I mean, the same thing as like saying like, oh, this person is a thug or yada yada. There's a lot of words that like phrasing is just different than a slur. Basically, the idea on it.
It's 20 words. COS. Who gets the fuck? Fine. Fucking avoided.
No. Listen, this guy is not being a thought Nazi. You're a mod, right?
Yeah, I'm a senior mod.
Yeah. He's a mod.
Right.
He's not. If I thought he was being a thought Nazi, I would certainly object. I immediately, when he responded to me, based upon the tone of his voice, he didn't seem to be trolling. I see he's a mod, and he doesn't want the server to come under any unnecessary acts because of something I said, which is reasonable. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. I don't agree with Discord.
Well, of course, no one agrees with that. Come on.
You could they're totally pro the LGBT alphabet soup mafia because even if you work for them, they'll pay for you to have your body mutilated because of what you imagine about yourself.
Yes, you might as well call it everything except for straight people.
Yeah, well, it's mostly just slurs. Yeah, you could say cracker. I think that might be something that comes up.
Actually, I was in a call with you. He was like, cracker's not fine, but he was trolling.
Oh, yeah, that's really cool for the time.
That was one time there. But comments fuck off. Don't care. Just get over it. It's fine.
I just want to know what's so bad about heterosexuality. What's so bad about straight people? Why do they hate us so much?
Because you make more
games.
Oh,
no.
Hey, Darth, if you want thank you. I didn't hear you. I don't like those words. Yeah, hey, CEO, listen to me. Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear, but because of the echo, it's difficult to understand you.
I'm echoing?
No, CEO racial.
Oh, sorry.
By echo.
Sorry, when you got time, I gotta ask you a few questions.
Hey,
mentioned that God is a mind, eternal mind, right? I'd like to ask where our position in this is. Are we in the mind or are we separate from the mind? Do we occupy a space?
The latter. It's called the creator-creature distinction. We are separate and distinct from the mind of God. If somebody said that we are incorporated within the mind of God, then they would be advocating pantheism or panentheism.
I see. Thank you.
But can I ask a question, Darth? When it comes to like Trinitarianism, I feel like Trinitarianism actually solves a huge problem with people that don't believe in omnipotence, because you have the Holy Spirit, you have the immortal, you have the all-powerful. So that should solve it. Like, should not that solve omnipotence?
On what grounds would they object to omnipotence? Is it the omnipotence of omniscience charge?
Yeah, so Muslims will say that Allah cannot be human. Period. It's not possible. And others would say that Jesus was not omnipotent because he's human. But the Godhead, the seal of the Trinity, kind of solidifies that. And that's why I went from agnosticism to maybe a little bit Christian. Because
there's a major book written by Wasserman that starts off where Van Til left off. You'd say that the Trinity is required for God in order for there to actually be a coherent world. It's hard reading, but if you it's called Imperative. His name is Wasserman. Hold on, I'll get a copy of it.
Wasserman? Albert Wasserman?
I'm looking it up on my computer.
I am.
A copy.
I was asking.
I was just explaining what you know.
Think about it logically, guys. Think about it logically. I'm trying to control, but it's illogical for a God to not have properties, and 3 properties are the minimal amount of properties that you can have for an omnipresent. I think those are, in my opinion. Sorry, I'm quiet now.
Yeah, I'll have the book for you in a minute.
So when it comes down to logic, we can break down every logical omnipresent or omnipotent God, and it needs 3 properties. It has to have it. So you have to have
Give me 3 persons, not 3. Give me 3 persons, not 3 properties, because God has more properties than that.
No. It has to have 3 manifestations. Because
you're getting yourself into a little bit of trouble when I say manifestation. What does that mean by manifestation?
Well, okay, so let's back up. We got to back up a little bit, though. Let's think about this. If you have an omniscient and omnipresent being, what are their variables? How do they exist?
Wait, archetype, just give me 2 seconds here. Back up even farther, look inside of an atom, and call the space between the subatomic particles immaterial, omnipresent. There's 2 of the things.
But we're talking about a God.
Okay, I know, I just gave you 2 qualities.
Archetype, check your DMs. I sent you a book showing why the Trinity is necessary in order for human intelligibility. It's a hard read, so if you decide to read it, don't get discouraged.
I'm going to download this. No. It's fine, but I'm just trying to, I'm making the argument, I'm the one making the argument that if you don't have the Trinity, you can't have an omnipresent, omniscient God. You can't have it, but it doesn't work.
Why would a Unitarian God not be able to be omniscient? To be omniscient, you
could a Unitarian God?
Can I finish, please? One of the bases of the fact that God is omniscient starts with his complete, exhaustive self-consciousness of himself. Okay? That's an important concept to understand, right? Because the creation itself is derivative and depends upon God's entirely exhausted self-consciousness of himself. So if omnipotence is rooted in exhausted self-consciousness, that there's nothing that God is unaware of about himself. Like right now, there are certain things that you and I right now are unaware of temporarily. Okay? But God is always entirely self-conscious of himself. Okay? There's not anything that is out of his knowledge or even awareness. Okay?
Right.
Why would and by the way, I'm a staunch defender of the Trinity. But why couldn't a Unitarian God be entirely self-conscious of himself?
But because solely because the Unitarian God asked the question, and the Unitarian God not exist, what is the answer?
No, I'm not getting a clear answer.
A Unitarian omnipotent God, can a Unitarian not omnipotent God not exist? Choose to not exist.
You're not answering my question. What would be the problem with the Unitarian God? Being entirely self-conscious of himself and consequently therefore being the basis of omniscience when he creates, because everything in the world derives and depends upon the mind of God. So why couldn't a Unitarian God be self-conscious?
I'm not saying he's not self-conscious. I'm saying could that...
That's the ground, that's the basis of omniscience.
But could that entity choose to not exist?
You're not focusing. Okay?
What am I missing?
Listen to me. Let's say we say God, whether God is Trinity or he's Unitarian.
I can tell you how
our archetype, can you just slow down, please? Okay, just listen to me, right? I'm not giving you a hard time, right?
I can tell you how the Trinitarian
Listen to me, I'm trying to work you through something. Logically, prior to creation, whether God is Trinitarian or Unitarian, would God be omniscient?
Sure.
Okay, so what would be the basis of God's omniscience? Well, the answer is he's entirely self-conscious of himself. Nothing else would exist logically prior to creation. So the root, the basis of God's omniscience is exhaustive self-awareness. The key word there is exhaustive. Okay? Do you understand that?
Sure. It's exhaustive.
Right. So now when God creates everything is what it is because it derives and depends upon the mind and the plan of God. Do you agree with that?
Yes, sure.
Okay. So everything is what it is by the mind and the plan of God. So when God is entirely self-conscious of himself, he would therefore be omniscient of everything that derives and depends upon his mind, which he is entirely self-conscious of. So, why can't a a Unitarian God be entirely exhaustively self-conscious of himself?
I feel like you're going to disagree with this, but you described a highly specialized, highly specific God.
Is there a defeater that you have for a Unitarian God of possessing exhaustive? Let me finish, please. Art, I'm trying to be patient. It's okay.
Sorry. I understand.
It's all right. Listen, I will bend over backwards being patient with people if it's clear to me they're not.
Trying, man.
I know you are.
I promise you.
I don't have any patience for people who are purposely being told you're not being a troll. Just try to work with me, okay? Yeah. Is there some defeater that you have that a Unitarian God, were to exist, cannot be exhaustively self-conscious of itself?
I feel like a Unitarian God cannot control all the variables.
No, we're talking about, listen, stop. We're talking about logically prior to creation. Do you have a defeater that a Unitarian God in a thought experiment could not be exhaustively self-conscious of himself? Is that all would exist?
No, because I believe in the Godhead. The Godhead
Okay,
is
No, listen. No. Listen to me. If God was a single person, would him being a single person prevent himself from being exhaustively self-conscious of himself?
No. But can I ask a question?
Now listen carefully. So by extension, the knowledge of the external world that is created after creation, if he's entirely self-conscious of himself, the Unitarian God, the created order derives and depends upon the mind of God from which he is entirely self-conscious of. So a Unitarian God under that scenario could be omniscient. You might want to argue on other grounds that a Unitarian God would present certain incoherencies, and the book that I sent you actually does that. But I don't think you have a case that a Unitarian God cannot be omniscient.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay, fair enough. I'll take it. It is still like
read that book. Read that book.
I will. I actually saved it. I am speechless because I want to open that up and read it, but
it's not an easy read, especially if you're not familiar with Cornelius Van Til's thought. Dude, can you not cut me off?
Sorry.
All I'm telling you, it's a good book. It's a hard read, but you should have a basic familiarity with Cornelius Van Til's thought. Okay?
Does it disagree with my concept that the Trinitarian approach is a pretty good approach to the anti-Gnostic or anti-agnostic view, because they throw these things out there that you can fulfill with the Trinity.
Brad Bosserman's book lays out the case that unless God is Trinitarian, then it is destructive metaphysically, and it will destroy intelligibility. That we must have a Trinitarian God, not a binary,
right,
not a quadrinity, okay, not a Unitarian God. And he goes into detail why this is not coherent and why the Trinity is a necessary prerequisite for intelligibility of the world and the internal intelligibility and coherence of Godhead.
Okay, so you gave my answer. So you gave my view on the world. Okay, fine, fair enough. All right, I'll be quiet.
So you don't have to be quiet.
Anybody else?
Yeah,
Anybody else? No, that's basically what I wanted to know.
Everybody notice here, I'm not getting agitated with him because he's not trolling. He's not lying. He's not trying to be obnoxious. He was interrupting me a number of times, but he wasn't doing it he wasn't doing it purposely. Okay, I am more than willing to bend over backwards to be patient with many people on Discord. But when I'm dealing with people who are, it's clear to me they're trolls, then I don't have patience for them.
I just wanted to tell him if he's looking for that just inside the atom, that extends all the way to the outer bounds of the universe further. It's whatever the universe is extending into. It's immaterial. You need to be removed from the gene pool because you're too fucking stupid to be alive.
Yeah?
If you want to understand my apologetic, it's that I always keep in mind, always, that the unbeliever, whoever I'm dealing with, has a prime directive. That prime directive is to preserve their mental autonomy at all costs. Okay? As opposed to relinquishing that autonomy and submitting to the autonomous mind of the God of the Bible. Okay? And so, many of the interlocutors that I deal with are not honest. So they will say anything, no matter how invasive or deceptive or disruptive, so as long as they can stalemate and preserve their autonomy. So they want to claim that they have reason behind their rejection. I mean, we heard Randolf Richardson with this same bullcrap that he utters all the time, right? He just hits you with a barrage of mental gymnastics and word salad, okay? He believes that his mind is autonomous, but in a world without God, that's not coherent. Okay? If we claim we have a mind, a consciousness, that it is, that it possesses intelligibility, then what accounts for this? If it is not the mind and the plan of God, is the mind eternal in and of itself? Is it its own context that it is self-contained and unconditionally non-driven and non-dependent? Well, I don't know many unbelievers who claim that. So now there has to be an external reference, okay, a contextual frame of reference in order to ground the actuality and intelligibility of the unbeliever's mind, that they believe is autonomous. But there is no ultimate final contextual explanation for everything. So that includes the mind as well. So there's no rhyme or reason as to what a mind is. Because there's nothing ultimately or fundamentally dictating what is, can be, and cannot be. Now, they don't believe that. Let me finish. They don't believe that. They just believe there's matter and energy, causality, and laws of nature. But they cannot defend those as being real. Because if they're real, the question is, why are they real? Are they real because they're self-contained? Or are they real derivatively? And how so? So what they have is, every fact that they have ultimately is a brute fact. In other words, there is no final or ultimate explanation. Every fact that is invoked to be true is shrouded in complete metaphysical mystery as to why it exists. And therefore, if it's shrouded in complete mystery, it's uninterpretable.
Darth, we've already established I'm already in total agreement with you. You gave me this book, Holy Grail. I'm already reading it, like the Trinity and the negation, whatever. But can I play devil's advocate here?
You can, but I'm leaving in 5 minutes. But before you do, well, I'm going to bed, right? I'm going to send you another book, and I want you to read the second book first. Okay? It's called Every Thought Captive. It lays down the basic reasoning of Cornelius Van Til, which will prepare you for reading Brad Bosserman's book. Okay?
Okay. okay, fair enough. But did you go over all the evolutionary arguments, or do people come to you for that? Because I got here late.
I discuss and debate evolution versus creationism on a regular basis, more so atheism versus theism. Okay, but I do discuss that.
Oh, but then does that happen in this conversation? Because I feel
not tonight. Not tonight.
Darth, all I want to say is, Darth, when it comes to this text you sent me, this book you sent me, yeah, high five. Yeah. That's all I want to say. Sorry, guys. Open up and tell
whoever sent me a DM requesting that book, I accidentally deleted that after I read it. Okay, and I get so many DMs I just don't pay attention to the names unless I have to. And it's late, so you can send me that DM again requesting the book and I'll send it to you.
I actually appreciate the Trinity and Christian paradox it's very informative. I've gone through some philosophical stuff with people and about that, and I'm going to dig into it because for me, it's like a super logical thing.
One of the things that when you deal with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of atheists, okay, what you find out is they'll engage in any number of deceptive tactics, and a word salad is one of their little tools that they pull out of their American atheist campus tote bag. Is they just, if they are posed with a typical question that really makes it clear what their position is, they'll just give you a circuitous word salad rather than directly answering the question. It's called running the clock out. Alright, I'm going to bed. Good night, all.
Good night, Darth. Good night, Darth. Oh, you left already.
College lecture, okay?
Alright, you look at full of shit. You want to talk about anything else? I'm not full of shit though. I have this shit open. I'm reading it, but I mean,
Darth is the smartest man I've ever met.
Where's that in, Chris?
Darth is the smartest man I've ever met. No question.
Oh, I actually am impressed by his rhetoric. He's really good.
I find him a challenge.
Why is he a challenge? What did he challenge you with?
He pushes hard, and most of the interlocutors I debate with don't push hard like he does.
It feels like it because of his voice and how he talks and how he pushes. Like I don't think he has anything to add to
I find it difficult.
Knowledge.
Yeah, and I do find it difficult to converse with him because he doesn't let people answer questions fully, and he seems to do that when he senses that it's going to be not the outcome he wants.
What about obfuscation and circuitous word salad and prevarication?
Well said.
For sure. Like I'm literally reading, like skimming the stuff he sent me, and while I agree with it, I don't know, man.
Actually, I am trying to.
What does that mean?
I'm trying to improve my own debating skill, and I do find
what does that mean?
pretty
Sorry.
incredible.
What does that mean? I do believe it's existed, but I a lot of stuff that like the academic or the Protestant, whatever the bishops, whatever the fuck they were correct. Like they said their analysis needs to be self-involved.
What do you want to be specific? Because I don't know what you're talking about.
No, I can't. No, I can't. Okay, so never mind. I can't be specific because I'm skimming. Skimming what? I'm skimming the Trinity and the vindication, the Christian paradox. The Trinity and the
Christianity bullshit. That's not point I'll give it. And all religions are, right? So.
Well, sure. Well,
we know the origins.
You didn't say that while that guy was here. Everyone unmuted when that.
Oh, yeah, no. Sorry.
What the fuck is wrong with you guys?
Right? But I'm not an atheist. He meets people that challenge him because he's intellectually weak. I'm just throwing him all concepts he is.
What do you find is the most successful argument against his position?
You just ask for his argument. There's lots of ways to argue against T-brain.
No. That's not the question.
However,
what is the argument for his position?
Yeah, so there's numerous ways to destroy him, but he didn't reach you on that path.
Well, you're not muted, so talk.
No, but I'm saying, like, when you come across him, there's no way for you to articulate because you're muted, right?
All you have to do is ask for the different rules for the necessity of Christian God. That's it.
Excuse me.
That's all you have to do.
So you don't scrutinize him. You're most likely to submit. I can guarantee it was the case that it's John, that you will listen to his arguments, asking questions to him to answer with no actual resistance, because that's when he starts reading people. The moment you apply critical questions,
which like negative to people, but I don't know that you're like this is a medical.
A minute where he is going on that. Like that's his through and through that his argument. So that's his tactic. You start applying more and more critical questions to him. He gets frustrated because he's an idiot, and then he meets you. Come again. Atheist.
But that's not true. I gave him something really fucking
like liberal question that he came to rant on.
Yeah.
And then you start giving him pressuring questions, and then he starts meeting you. Black.
I was not pressuring. I'm a nice person. What the fuck?
Yeah. I'm trying to nail out the answer with his questions, or you start to respond to his answers, and that's when the beat starts.
Yeah. Try to nail him down. Say, list one reason to believe in any religion. Mute.
Oh no! That would be fucking stupid. We're in the fucking we're in a guest fucking channel. Like I'm sure these fucking guests. I hate these guest channels, by the way. I don't like this.
He should have seen it before he had his own room. We had more towels across the whole server back in the day.
I keep hearing about that. That's so funny.
The guest texts are fucking cancer. I just want to say, I don't like it. I'm so banned from Sierra Chat because those certain gentlemen don't like to talk to me.
I would think probably don't have an anonymous chat. That would be insane.
Oh my god.
Okay,
no, Did you use
let me say this live?
This is the perfect opportunity to share a story. I gotta tell you, when I first had a little video game, my cousin came over and he's got problems, okay? And we were playing Pac-Man on this little video game. And it was an Atari 2600. And so I was playing it, and it was my cousin's turn, and then it was my turn. And so he goes, my turn! And then he lost, so he hits the reset button and he goes, my turn again! Sound familiar?
That's what he does, yeah. But it's funny because, like, back on the Google Plus, that was the thing. And the Google Plus, I like it, that was nice. Okay, then I wasn't one of that. The Google Plus, if you guys remember that, you could join a random
That's how you learn how to fucking debate with people.
Random, like 11-year-old. And he would lose his mind. And this kid was talking about, like, what they did at school that day, Pokemon, whatever it was. And he would randomly join and start calling them out. So it was fucking hilarious. The videos are on YouTube. It's amazing.
Post that shit. Where is it at? Post it.
Where
is it posted?
I'll put it in voice link.
I didn't even know that was even relevant. I thought it was a rando. I thought it was a random guy. He's serious business. What the fuck?
He's been doing this for like more than 10 years. I've done it for 9 years, basically. He's been doing it since like AOL and shit.
Oh my god.
Called Power Talk.
That was
He has a personality disorder. Why do you guys not see that?
Yeah, like,
I'm sure you'll not hate it.
it's not really even funny. It's just gross. It's not.
He needs help. He needs to see a psychiatrist or therapy. You can see.
This is taken out when you join
He's a Christian.
That's right.
Fine, if you're Christian, and that's what happens with Christians. It's fine.
What was his name before Darth Dawkins?
That's not what happens to Christians. That's not normal.
I'm joking, dude.
Don't connect you.
Okay. Not getting your sarcasm.
I gotta find his videos. This is amazing.
They're not really good. How?
Like he going like random shit.
Makes me feel so fucking bad. I argued with that guy for like fucking 30 minutes. What the fuck, man? What? What?
What the fuck is snort? You just fucking snort?
No. I was snorting. I was laughing from, like, I was laughing.
What the fuck is this? I'm trying to find the video.
Oh no, I'm being canceled by the fucking Discord right now because I fucking snorted. Oh my god, girl.
Don't make fun of me. Snort in a worldview where you have no intelligibility.
Yeah, sorry about that spelling mistake.
I felt like I did a decent version with the guy. I felt like we argued selling good.
One where he gets destroyed by fucking, like, the dude with the Space Marine fucking, icon. He's, like, fucking laid out for pretty much death. Yeah, good.
Gus is the word fucking shit.
He's weird.
Yeah, Gus did a...
Oh god.
Somebody would... No, maybe like the, she's trans,
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
she's always like, she's an oddball. Nice, but helpful. And, Gus is like, if a iteration of her in a rant, instead of taking up YouTube, he remembered himself. The best rant is in sort of a cinema, guaranteed. Because we were all trying to help her get a job back in like 2015. And she's refused, and everyone helped her and all this, and then she just accepted. And so he did a rant about it, it was fucking boring.
That's where I fucking know your voice from. Oh my god.
Holy shit.
I do you some of it. It was just, part of that. I listened to it every day. That's fucking great.
Yeah. No? Yeah, those guys like that if you're doing
Did she wind up, like, being good, or what happened?
No idea of that. I do not recall. I think she is okay.
She, like, delete Discord and, like, have a life.
She had Discord, hang out.
Oh, this is pre-Discord, okay. This is a boomer shit. Okay, fine.
Boomer makes me laugh too.
No, I'm just curious about someone who's doing some shit. Some people that are
What's it called? Dawkins Credit. Oh, yeah. I think it's work on that credit. Multiple orgies. It's Dawkins Credit. I've been binging Steven Seagal movie reviews for like the past few weeks.
Why?
So he's the best shit. That's funny.
Like, are you literal right now?
Good enough to get a bit.
No, I'm asking a question. Like, what the fuck?
Really?
Do we watch Steven Seagal movies?
No, you
like, how do you... No, I swear that you're like, actually, you haven't actually been doing this. That's my question. Like, I don't believe you.
movie reviews. I've been binge watching movie reviews of these shitty films because they're so funny. Have you seen my fun of these movies?
You've been actually watching a movie. You've just been watching a review.
I've never watched a B movie in my life. Or C movie. Never.
Okay, so why would you fucking come at me for that? Like, what the fuck? What the fuck?
But Trump, have you watched F movies?
Fucking guy. He's talking about, he literally said, that's watching
The reviewer?
he's watching a review. So what's a good review?
Oh, like the website?
What's a good review? Come on.
Syria.
What's a good movie? What's a good movie?
Yeah, I've never watched it.
You want me to go away?
Oh, that's a category. Oh, I clicked on the website. So I use it. Yeah. Actually, I said it. I think that's easy. What's the fucking Walker? What is it? No, not
I'm asking you for an amazing movie.
What one went downhill years ago? No, I use Movie 7. You just fucking, it's good. It just makes sure you got like the book and shit. What the fuck is it? Darwin's Greatest Hits? What is it? I can't find it now. Fuck.
I wasn't here. Did Darth completely destroy Randolph in the Great Debate, or?
Sure, with those limericks?
No, either one proved nor did Darth.
What great debate? What are we talking about?
Neither one of them proved or disproved. You came late. They had a big debate before you did. Neither one of them disproved or proved God.
I will say that I did not win.
No. The thing is, like, none of these debates ever prove or disprove God. So,
Yeah.
still, like, always. If we were going to do that on Discord, I think we're winning Nobel Prizes. Let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah,
To prove or disprove a God. Go.
Hey,
Nobel Prize.
You pick specific gods, but like the first of gods, where it's like exploiting characteristics of like the Abrahamic gods, aka can't, but the Abrahamic gods and all of them you can disprove through anthropology, geology, and all that fun stuff.
Or the paradox of omniscience and omnipotence.
The Earth is here. The Earth is real. Give me the Nobel Prize.
Yes. I was trying to find a video. But Jesus, so funny.
It seems like complicated to me to disprove the Trinitarian God. Like, what the fuck? Like, what do you do? How do you disprove Jesus? Like,
You can't.
Well, no, you can disprove the biblical Jesus, but the historical one is a different story.
no, there's still one. It's always
Biblical is different from historical. Historical is just various theories on that have some grounding, but there's no biblical, there's no supernatural, cool crap on it.
Well, no. Of course, supernatural is ridiculous. But when you talk about the space stuff, like,
Where the fuck is it? I'm actually getting mad right now.
tell me who this is.
It's just when Darth joins a people hangout, full of kids, and he goes all like shit on them.
Archetype.
What the fuck?
Archetype, I would say the big stuff is that no religion has ever been shown to be true.
Well, whoever says archetype, no religion shown to be true. there's I know there's three.
Oh my god.
Well, the religions with deities.
The fucking sniping that would happen. Oh my god. So on Google Hangout, people could join a call, anyone, and they could like kick anyone else from the call. It was called sniping. It was horrible. The pains we had.
Here's the secret. There's probably somebody here that doesn't know this. Like, how do you take the agnostic position? You win every debate.
Of course, it's fucking so.
I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure about that. I'm just not too sure. Okay, I can take the agnostic position. I'm a agnostic. Not too sure. That's agnostic. It sounds agnostic. I'm agnostic agnostic.
I'm shy agnostic, motherfucker.
You're one of those married bachelors, aren't you?
Yeah, if you're married in one country and not the other, you're a married bachelor.
That's one solution. Another one is that you have a wife and you've also got a fiance because you're into having multiple partners.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny.
I like what you said. Those different countries. That's a great example.
Yeah, different countries. I'm married in Thailand, but not here.
Yeah, because governments don't talk to each other.
Married in real life, but not on the internet. That's the only hangout to be occupied. Apparently, it's getting destroyed.
He's always getting destroyed, but like a guy called Floyd would massacre Darwin.
I'm just trying not to get banned, but I discovered the cure for religion reality. What's the cure is reality? Is that what it is? Yeah, only reality.
Because Floyd was actually studied philosophy and I think biblical literature, like a university proper, and just he just eviscerated. It was amazing. I'm trying to find him arguing a bunch of fucking kids, and I cannot find it. I'm so happy.
Maybe you made it up.
Yeah. Okay, then.
I just realized reality.
That felt like Floyd.
It's literally the belief in reality. The cure for religion.
That was shameless. Oh my god. Oh, this is nostalgia. Holy shit. 8 years ago, 5 years ago. Oh my lord.
Religion pretends to know answers they don't have.
Pretend or assume?
They pretend. They tell you. When they tell you that they have these answers that they don't have, they're pretending. And that now if they're assuming, I mean, that's because they're assuming. Probably both.
Yeah, I suspect it varies from person to person. Like there's many theists who genuinely believe it.
That's an interesting point, Randolph. Really, we're really onto something there. The pretenders are the liars, and the assumers are the brainwashed, the victims.
I'll find it another day. I'm at a loss.
I also found one where he was just calling girls fat a lot.
Yeah.
There you go. So I found two for hangouts.
Wait, what did you type in? Just start with deity or?
I typed in Darth Dawkins, and that's my quotation Google Hangouts videos. And so it's going to look at all the Google Hangouts. Or you can do one in between Google Hangouts. That's not it.
Keep the Hangouts cable short. No. Your fault, isn't it? Your day with Darth Dawkins and Co.
I've been trying to find my original conversation with Darth Dawkins back in the Google Plus days on Google Hangouts, and I've not been able to find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he hates on you a lot, like when you're on your small.
Oh, not just after I talk with him?
Not just one of them.
Yeah, all sorts of times. Hundreds of times.
Holy cow, really?
Oh, yeah.
I am really not trying to make him mad. I do want to try to get through this stuff with him. Then he resorts to using an ultimatum, and that didn't work very well.
It's fun because I've seen him twice and I absolutely loved it. Once where he obliterated JFK conspiracy theory. He basically, I fucking loved it. It was good episode. He told me, but here's my he obliterated Holocaust style work. It's amazing. It's like me, kind of conspiracy theorist at the end of the day. He was one that was through JFK assassination and the Holocaust is glory. But there's nothing with control is not trying to get him to bring up something again. Because he's easy. And what happens
I don't know if it's just me, but you're really breaking up. Yeah, bad robotic.
Breaking up for me, too. I thought it was just me.
Okay, how about now?
You fixed it.
I just set up my VPN.
You fixed it.
Yeah, cool. I'll repeat it more concise. Darth Dawkins obliterate people on JFK conspiracy theories and Holocaust conspiracy theories. To the degree where it's like me debunking conspiracy theories to things like the NSA spies and everyone and shit, he's like that, but on JFK and Holocaust. It's glorious. I try to bring it up with him, but I'm on his shoulders, so he beats me automatically.
But if you feel on the newspaper, does he say that the number of the 6 million Jews dying from gas chambers, or does he get around?
No, he accepts history, right? That 25 million Jews died, and those all those things. He obliterates the conspiracy theories.
Wikipedia right now says like 1.5 million.
No, 6.5 million Jews killed in the Holocaust. So typed in with quotes to hang out. I think a lot of kids,
Try searching for alternate words for kids, like children or young people, things like that.
Yeah.
People put funny descriptions in sometimes to avoid certain filters.
Yeah. So we'll get to it. One of them is quite a few. I'll put it in our voicemail. Oh no. The kids were playing Minecraft or some shit.
I think I heard about this, yeah.
Oh, I'm bookmarking now. So never lose it again.
Picking on children is low.
What is this called again? It's in voice links. I finally found a video. I'm looking at that. That's voice links. The first video came out when kids on Google Hangouts. He joined, he's done it a few times. Joined random people in Google Hangouts to argue shit with them, in this case, instead of kids playing Minecraft or some shit.
Why would anybody do that? He must have been extremely bored.
No, it's creepy, but it's also, I guess, weird.
It's weird, yeah. Creepy is another good word to describe it.
I just don't believe it is okay to proceed along with his script. So fucked up.
How would you? If I tell you that the moon is not made out of green cheese, that is not the same. Alright. If I say to you,
No, that's good.
Where was that?
Where's the voice thing? Yes, my head. Join back in Google, you could hang out days, you could join people's chats, you could hang out, and whatnot. And he would just join random people, and he's done a number of times where he would join kids, random kids, across the globe, they'll hang out, or they're playing Minecraft or some shit, across the day, and he would like bring up God and start debating and shit. It's so fucking pathetic. Oh, God.
Danny in the chat's writing that NFTs are first and foremost atheists.
I just don't like the word sometimes atheist. It's like, are you an atheist or atheist? What is it? Why I say take theism out of atheism.
Sorry, are you? Sorry, who's asking? Are people actually asking, are you an atheist or an atheist?
Yeah, they make fun, like, I'm not a Muslim. Like, you're not a Muslim. I'm not a atheist, yeah.
Oh, they're saying atheist or a theist.
Yeah, I'm not a Jew. But wait a second, I'm not a Jew, a Muslim.
Oh, jeez.
No, just think of it like abstinence.
I just say realize reality.
Yeah.
Reality. That's such a pretentious answer.
I love it. I'm the founder of reality. That's the most pretentious thing is that I'm the founder of reality. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
King almost like the priest argument.
Yeah. It's presuppositional agnosticism. I'm agnostic agnostic.
And before you were agnostic, you had beliefs about being agnostic.
I've always known that I've never known.
Exactly.
What growth point is when people say confuse subconscious with unconscious. That's really grunts like this.
The whole entire on a bumper sticker.
Unconscious is the subconscious?
Yeah, people who confuse it, right? Let's say, like if you're
just remind them that if they're unconscious, they have a lack of consciousness.
yeah, exactly.
If anybody wanted to know what I was talking about with the atom and the couple of particles with the stars here, is that this immaterial omnipresence is literally nothingness. It's nothing.
That seems like a semantic error, right?
No, it's true. You can the space between the subatomic particles of an atom, okay, is immaterial and it's omnipresent and it extends out beyond the universe. It's omnipresent.
Would you say that
That seems like a contradiction in terms, because you're saying the space in between them, that's like a bounded region.
Yes.
or it's absolutely nothing?
Immateriality, which is nothingness. Well, of course. It's just literally space. Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Yeah.
Nothing. It's nothingness.
Well, absolutely, you should qualify that as absolutely nothing.
It's not made of nothing.
Yes, it is.
No, it's immaterial. Space-time is a physical entity.
What's it made of?
Physical
immaterial and omnipresent. It's not matter.
Are we talking about nothing or absolutely nothing?
You get to the whole issue of like quantum chromodynamics. We have the vertical part, but and then it
So
an electron is matter. Okay. The space between the electrons is immaterial.
physics are. If you're like a quantum field theorist, then everything is like a quantum field, right? Everything, like, particles are particular, like, perturbations of a quantum field. So everything... Yeah, but when it's nothing in the universe, there is no, in QFT, there is no nothing.
I have an answer for that.
Quantum fields extend all the way through space-time.
Okay, but as far as this goes, my whole point is that God is, if there was any God, God is literally nothing.
Because they say God is outside of the universe, and then he's like a spiritual type of thing, like
omnipresent. But they say omnipresent. It's a trait of a human being, but
the space between the atoms, that wouldn't be absolutely nothing, though. That would just be, it could be nothing, but it wouldn't be absolutely nothing, because laws of logic and laws of physics and laws of quantum physics, everything still applies, right?
God, the concept of God is with full power, with no knowledge, that's outside of the universe, that can do everything.
Right, see, and that's what I'm saying, what I just described as it falls far short of that. Literally, I am bringing to the table
categorically not that.
Yeah, but you're not bringing absolutely nothing. You're bringing nothing, but not absolutely nothing.
Space-time isn't nothing. Right?
Correct.
Space-time is like bounded, it expands, right? But nothing. Let's be fair.
Okay, debate me fair. We're not even debate. Let's just come to an understanding. Whatever is not material isn't material. There you go. That's all I'm saying.
Sure, but the laws of logic can still apply.
Immaterial doesn't mean nothing.
Right.
It's material and omnipresent.
Yeah, but it's not nothing. I'm not objecting to the idea that it's immaterial.
What is it made of if it's not made of anything?
It's made of space-time.
Which is made of?
It is space-time. It's a fundamental part of the universe. Just like
what is that?
Just like electromagnetism.
Electromagnetism. Space exists. Yeah. We're talking about what we're literally talking about what
you don't know anything about physics, Jeff.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying that we're talking about what the universe is getting into. It's a huge thing that is literally
the universe doesn't expand education. The universe doesn't expand into anything.
As far as we know.
I don't understand quantum physics or physics.
Do you think there's an edge of the universe that's like marching forward into nothingness?
I discovered cosmic scene theory.
Cool. I'm happy for you, man.
Well, it's easy. Think of the universe as a pine cone, and every pine cone seed is a great attractor. No one just sucks in tens of thousands of galaxies to go to Big Bang.
Cool.
Or multiple Big Bangs at the same time.
We're headed towards the great attractor right now. Yeah. So, anytime it goes Big Bang, that universe thinks it's the only one that exists.
It doesn't matter. The point is that space-time has like rules that govern it, right? It is like distorted by gravity, right? So it's not nothing. I feel like you're just saying random. No, these
haven't just proven anything. What are you saying? Nothing is.
I'm not saying nothing is made out of.
Why are you attacking me? It's not very gentlemanly.
Back in 2013 with absolute cancer that got worse.
I hope this message can go back to school.
It basically is. Everyone followed our fucking website in 2013 and I think 2012, but and they could have bad rap I think in 2014 because they were a bit like anti-GMO. The anti-GMO thing was really big in 2013, 14, 15. Thank God it's not because of fucking anti-science obviously. And then backlash to that fucking website, I was just fucking like, oh my God, this is big backlash.
So I'm a little confused. What is your conclusion on premise by?
Like, literally nothing. It's like, it's just long troll. It's literally nothing. Yeah, that was the point. That's the troll.
So well, you said it, and I just
yeah, the whole point was that it's just a long troll, like really long troll. God could be no, yeah, it was just confusing.
Mister, I think you're thinking about nothing, but not absolutely nothing. With absolutely nothing, there would be no laws of physics.
It's different.
No, let him talk. Let's Randolph talk.
There wouldn't, like, with absolutely nothing, you wouldn't have necessarily laws of logic, laws of physics, entropy, things like that. Whereas with nothing, you could still have those other things. You could have nothing in space time, a complete vacuum. You could say that's nothing, and you'd still have laws of physics.
I'm not going to argue that. I actually agree that there's space there. Space-time is there, but it's not material. So
sure.
All I called it was basically immaterial and omnipresent because all that space, whatever it is made of material,
yep.
Whatever is not matter is immaterial and omnipresent because it's everywhere, all around every particle.
And I'm just trying to inject some specificity here to help clarify the conversation.
You say nothing.
Yeah,
but I don't understand what the difference is. When I think of nothing, I think of what you're calling absolutely nothing, which is just absence. Hold on, thanks, Mister. I'd like to talk to Randolph if possible. Thank you. So when I think of nothing, I think of the absence of anything. Right? So there's no space-time there. There's no there's no space-time there to be supported by gravity. There's no laws of physics that are applying. There's just a complete absence of anything. Yeah. That's what I think of as nothing.
That's right.
So when you say, oh, there's absolutely nothing. Okay, when you say nothing, you just mean something in the term.
That is what I'm trying to say. Which level, which definition you have to cross? You have to agree upon definitions.
Do you think
the troll, what we're talking about, a troll that I'm trying to say.
Why are you talking to Randolph?
Yeah. Well, because
I don't know what you're
talking about.
I'm talking about what Randolph said. I don't care.
I don't care. Okay.
Yeah, so I injected those different phrasing to try to bring clarity to this because it seemed to me like there was people not quite fully understanding each other and trying to help to get there.
We can all have our fun about this, but you guys want to make fun of someone who's far researching this? In Abrahamic chat, a guy called Nick Boo, I'm not going to pronounce the last name, or last thing, he thinks bugs don't exist. Unwonderful.
So, Randolph, what do you mean when you say bullying?
Repeat that, please.
Interrupting.
I didn't hear your question, I'm sorry.
What do you mean when you say nothing? You're making a distinction between absolutely nothing and nothing.
Normally, I think of it the same way you do, but I find a lot of people, when they hear the word nothing, they're thinking of, they very often refer to a book by Lawrence Krauss, which was,
God.
I know. So that's why I always differentiate with absolutely nothing, because I find it brings clarity to conversation. That's all. I think you and I actually agree.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And I do too. That's what I'm trying to say. It's a troll. I was just trying to say, control that you could have the possibility of something that's immaterial and omnipresent. And I don't even put in there nothing, the troll is that you're alluding that God could be disbelieving nothingness. Because it's bringing no evidence of God.
But I understood what you were saying, Mr. I even said in guest text that it was following up.
A troll is obvious.
Oh, yeah, multi-decade troll.
But when you say that space-time is the same thing as there being nothing, that seems confused. It's the same confusion that Lawrence Krauss had.
No, that's not what I would say.
Oh, you have a quantum soup, which is the same as
I wouldn't word it that way. No. I wouldn't word it the way you just worded it when you try to put words in my mouth.
I have a question. You have leave.
No, trying to think that I'm meaning what I'm saying, right?
My desire was just to bring some clarity in. I have to go, but it's been nice talking with all of you. Thank you very much, and hearing about that Darth keeps going on about me was a surprise to me, but kind of not a surprise as well. That's like he's free to say whatever he wants. I'm not worried because I know what's true and what isn't.
And just so you know, the way he does it over and over and over again, since we're talking about it, and he'll go, the president of the Canadian atheists, and he says that. That's basically the...
He's obsessed with titles.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm introducing myself, I'll mention it, and otherwise I just tell people I'm Randolph, or Randolph Richardson, and leave it at that, and that works fine for me.
Yeah, then I say I'm the founder of reality.
That's beautiful, man. That's great. At the very least, that part that's true, you can say you're the founder of your own reality as you pursue it. Yeah, so you can start there. He can only back you that far into a corner. It's great meeting you and meeting a lot of new people tonight, so thanks everyone.
Have a good one.
Take care. Good night to all of you.